Want to know how you can retire in less than 10 years with real estate? Well, let me show you how with my whiteboard. Now, what we covered off in part one was how do you go ahead and purchase 10 properties for $500,000 each. Now, I'm going to link part one in the comments anyway, but let's give you a refresher. What we had suggested was in years 10, 1 to 10, we would go out and purchase one property for 500K every single year. And one of the things that people would comment is saying, how would I be able to afford this? What does my income look like? And what's the equity position? That's not so important right now. Let's get the strategy, or at least the big idea down, then we can go a little bit more into further detail. So if we're able to go and execute this, it means that we're now controlling $5 million worth of real estate. So the idea was that if I wanted to retire in 10 years, I would go ahead and by the time I get to my 10th year, and let's say I started this when I was 28 and now I'm 38, and I would say the properties that I purchased in year one will now have doubled, because historically in Australia, we've seen property prices double every 10 to 12 years. So assume we went and bought one property in our first year at 28, in 10 years time, this would now be worth $1 million. So the idea is that every year, what you could do is you could go ahead and sell these properties to go and pay the debt on these properties down here, which means essentially you would be in a point where you'd have positive cash flow from the remaining properties despite having debt. Now, let's look at part two, which is if we have these properties, what does it look like over 20 years? We've already discussed in 10 years' time, we have property prices double. So if they double, we know that this is worth $10 million. Well, what happens if we don't want to retire in 10 years' time? Because, hey, while we're sitting there, everyone's working, we're not going to have any friends to hang out with. So we say instead of $10 million, we want to wait 20 years before we can retire. Maybe we want to create generational wealth. Well, in this case, you would now have $20 million worth of real estate. Mind you, if you never paid a single dollar down, you would have about $4 million to about $4.5 million worth of debt. Now, when you divide that here, you're looking at an LVR position of about 45%. When you start looking at it on $20 million, you're starting to look at an LVR position of about 20%, which is absolutely crazy. Now, the two other major factors here are equity and income. And I would love to make a detailed video about this, including how to unlock unlimited borrowing. So if you want to know how to execute something like this, you're going to need to know how to get the borrowing and how to use your equity. If you want that video, put part 3 into the comments and I'll make that one for you guys.